Hey, guys, it is your girl, SherVonne Grose, and I am here tonight. I apologize for running late, but I am here indeed. I am here. It is a wonderful, wonderful Wednesday indeed. And you know what we do on Wednesday, guys? We wow. And by wow, I mean to wish only well all across the world. Listen, guys, I am flying solo this evening, meaning I am without a special guest. And it's been a while since I've been before you without having a guest in the studio with me. I am so excited. Again, let me introduce myself because I think I just came on and let me properly introduce myself the same way I would do if I had a guest. So let's try that again, guys. Let's roll it back one time wherever you are in the world. Good day, good people, good day, and welcome to Wow, Wish Only Well radio show. Wish Only Well live TV show. Oh my goodness, where I am your fantabulous host. And yes, I mean fantabulous for fantastic and fabulous. Actually, I am super therapist, SherVonne Grose, marriage and family therapist, inspirational coach, and motivational speaker. Listen, I'm super excited about my shirt compliments of Kamitri's Bun of Bundit. She is my official t-shirt designer. So shout out. Let me tell you about this t-shirt and how it actually came about, right? So the Byron, I live in the town of Byron, and we had our Christmas parade this past Saturday. And the theme was a superheroes Christmas, right? And so I was slated to be a part of the Christmas parade. Unfortunately, I was not able to due to being a bit under the weather, but nonetheless, I was prepared to present as a super therapist. As a super therapist. So I'm super excited about it. And there was a previous guest of Wow, Wish Only Well, who came on and gave me the title of super therapist. And so I like that. Yeah, I think I wear that pretty well. So I'm sporting my shirt tonight because I did not get to wear it in the parade. Listen, this is the most favorite time of the year for me. I've shared that with you. So excited. So excited so excited to be. I'm sorry, I was having some technical difficulties, and then it's still giving me a notification over to the right. So I am slightly distracted, but that's okay because we're going to push through it and we're going to do this episode tonight, right? And so, anyway, this is my favorite time of the year. I have shared that on the Wow. Wish Only Well radio show, and I'm sharing it here with you tonight on the Wow Wish Only Well TV show. This is my favorite time of year. I absolutely love this season. Christmas is my favorite holiday, next to my birthday, of course. But Christmas is my favorite holiday, has always been. I have very fond memories of Christmas from my childhood all the way up until now, even in my adulthood. It's just something that I really enjoy. However, I wanted to come on because I wanted to address that I know that this season is not the merriest season for everyone. I know that people have difficulties during this time of the year. And so I decided that I wanted to come on for a few minutes and share with you about grief. I know a number of families, including my very own family, including me, that have been hit with grief or with the loss of a loved one. And typically, grief is associated with the loss of a loved one. However, grief is not specific to the loss of a loved one. You can experience grief with any significant loss, right? So let's just put that out there. But typically during this time of the year, you think about getting together with your family and celebrating with your loved ones. And so I know that there are many families who have lost loved ones. And so for that reason, this may not be the merriest or the happiest time of the year for them. So I wanted to come on for a few minutes to just share with you about grief and maybe hopefully to bring a word of encouragement, a word of inspiration, and a word of motivation to someone who may be experiencing grief during this period, may be experiencing some lows, the blues, as we call it. We typically call it the holiday blues because it's, in case you're thinking that you're alone and feeling the holidays blues and thinking that something is wrong with you because you're not feeling chipper or cheery or whatever the case may be. let me just let you know now that you're not alone, right? And that people experienced it and have been experiencing it for years. So this is not a new phenomenon. This is not a new thing. This is something that has been ongoing and has been researched, as a matter of fact. So I wanted to come on here and I wanted to share with you again, just talk a little bit about grief, right? What it entails and how it can be kind of difficult to manage, especially during this time of the year, where everybody is so happy and so chipper. Not everybody, but a lot of people are so happy and cheerful. I tend to be one of those people, but I also have to be mindful that again that this time of the year is not that way for everyone. So and actually, my sister and I was having a conversation. One of my sisters, I actually have four beautiful sisters. Um, so my oldest sister and I was having a conversation actually about grief, and she was sharing with me about someone who was experiencing grief really heavily, was having a really hard time getting over the loss of a loved one, and that person's significant other could not understand why the person was continuing to experience grief to the level and magnitude that that person is experiencing grief. And so that person's significant other made the comment that they did not understand why that person was still doing that, because they knew someone who had lost, I guess in their mind, had a greater loss, if you will, than their significant other. And the person who seemingly had a greater loss seemed to be doing much better than the person who had only recently lost one person. So I wanted to come on here to just say this. First of all, grief is a process. Grief is real. Grief can be heavy. It can be very difficult at times to manage, to get through. There are different levels or stages of grief that we move in and out of. And we can experience those stages at any time, even if we think we've gotten to a point where we are at that acceptance stage, we can find ourselves going back, right? Going backwards. And so I just wanted to share that first of all with you. And so the other thing that's really important to know about grief is that grief is an individualistic. I tell you, my mouth, individualistic, if you will, experience, meaning that grief is unique to the person who is experiencing it. So, in other words, there shouldn't be a comparison. One person's grief towards another person's grief, because grief looks different for each person. So the way I grieve may not be the way that my husband grieved or the way that my children grieve. It may look different from all of it for each of us, right? That doesn't mean that my grief is worse than his grief or whatever the case, or he's doing better than me or whatever the case may be. Just know that grief is grief, and people have different stages and varying degrees of grief. And the best thing to do is just be respectful of whatever it is that person is actually going through, right? Sometimes I know that it can be very difficult, especially when someone has lost a loved one, when someone has died. We sometimes struggle with what to say. And we mean well, so we will say things sometimes that's not really what the person who's going through the grief or the person who experienced the loss want to hear at that particular time. I know some things are cliche and we just kind of pick it up and we kind of roll with it and we say things like that, but we have to be really mindful of what that person may be going through. Now, get this. I know that as Christians that we don't mourn the way that the world mourn. I get that. I understand that. But let's be realistic too. At the same token, we're not always as spiritual. We're not always operating in the spiritual, right? We operate in the natural more likely, more often, because we're human. We have that's just our nature. And so because of that, we have feelings and emotions. We're equipped with that. So what happens is we start to feel, right? Our emotions start to come out when we lose someone. A lot of times we're sad, we're hurt, we're shocked, we're in disbelief, we're angry, sometimes we're depressed. We go through those stages. We experience those different things. And so as a result of that, sometimes when we or when we are going to comfort someone who has experienced a loss, we may say some things that doesn't sit very well with the person. That can be actually offensive. And even though we may mean well, if we don't know what to say during that time, as we approach someone, just be honest about it and say that. I don't really know what to say. Right now, I'm at a loss of words. But just know that I'm here for you if you feel like talking or if you need something, right? And at that very moment, the person who's experiencing the loss or the person who's experiencing grief may not know what it is that he or she needs at that particular moment. So if you have a suggestion of something that you may be able to do for them, such as cook a meal, prepare a meal, run some errands for them, ask specific questions about what it is that you can do rather than just an open ended, let me know if there's anything that I can do for you. Now, trust me, I've been guilty about doing that as well. But if we could be more specific about it, then it can help the person, because their mindset isn't really thinking about um, how it's not functioning how it normally functions, right? When you're under grief or when you're experiencing something of that magnitude. So if you can be a little more specific about what it is that you're offering to the person so that they may be able to decide if that's something that they need. And maybe even if they don't need it at that moment, they may think about it later on, like, yeah, I can really use, SherVonne running to the store for me and being able to, or to pick up the kids from school, or maybe to drop off my laundry somewhere, to do something to help or kind of help tidy up the house, prepare the house for guests, or whatever they may actually need at that particular time. But just be mindful of what you say and how you say it, right, to the people, because we believe, and I know that, like I said, we're Christians and we don't grieve the way that the world grieves, because we believe in life after death. So we know that if we've lived righteously and our loved ones have lived righteously, that we will meet them again, right, in heaven. We'd all be together again. But I wanted to go back and just say that, and sometimes one of the things that we say sometimes is that, hey, well, at least, your loved one is better off, in heaven than here on this earth. But the person may not want to hear that at that particular time. They may not be willing to accept that, even though they may be a person who walk in faith. They may be a believer in Christ. It may be difficult for them to comprehend that or be accepting of that at that particular time, right? None of us want to imagine or even experience the loss of a loved one. We want to live. We know that we won't live forever, but we want to live as long as we possibly can. Especially if it's a healthy life, we want longevity. So no one wants to imagine life without a loved one, right? So just kind of be mindful of that. So, and as we go through this season, be mindful of that. If we see someone and we're saying Merry Christmas and the person may be slow to respond, or Happy Holidays, whatever it is that we're saying, be mindful of these things, because it's not a happy holiday for them. It's not a Merry Christmas for them. And not only this time of the year, but also during significant, other, holidays and things where somebody has experienced a tragedy or a loss, even on Veterans Day. I've tried to be real careful about saying Happy Veterans Day, because it's not always a happy time for veterans, people who've served, or even for their family members who may have lost service members. So we have to be mindful of that, as we, go throughout the holiday seasons. Yeah. Yeah. So I just wanted to come on and share that with you. So be mindful of that. Yeah. So again, when you encounter someone who's had a loss, right? And again, I'm using the loss of a loved one, but it could be someone that has gone through a divorce or a relationship, a bad breakup or whatever. That still constitute a loss. And that loss could still mean that that person is grieving, right? And so that person may be going through the grief process. if so be mindful of that. Don't tell me that I'm better off without my husband now, right? Right? Even though, you may think, well, I don't think he was good enough for you, or that it may not be what I want to hear at that particular time. So if you really don't know what to say, just don't say anything. Just be there, right? Just sometimes just being there is just very helpful. Um, just listen sometimes. We don't always have to be ready to give a word, to speak up to someone. Sometimes people just need to talk. And they just need a listening ear. Um, and so we get that. I sometimes get that even in therapy sessions. I have to be real mindful of that when clients come in. Of that, usually you think of the therapy session as being an interchange, right? Communication, flowing information, going back and forth, someone speaking, someone listening, that type of interchange. But I have to tell you that that's not always the case. It's not always the case. And I was reminded of that, actually, this just this week. So sometimes people need time to just kind of process, and sometimes people need a safe space, or to make sure that a space is safe before they're actually able to divulge or give out information. So just be mindful of that. So again, let me just recap. Grief is real, right? And grief is can be very difficult to manage, right? Grief is different from everybody, right? So please don't compare somebody else's grief to the way somebody else's grief. Don't tell somebody to get over it and that they need to move on. Please don't do that. That's disrespectful. And you don't know how you would be if you were in that particular situation. And even if you say, well, I lost my mother or my brother and I didn't overreact, I don't feel like I overreacted, or I reacted in the way that he or she is. I don't understand why he or she is continuing to mope and continuing to be sad and depressed, or continue to be angry, or not wanting to eat, or not wanting to go or be around people. Listen, people have a right to grieve the way that they need to grieve, right? All right. And you have to understand and respect that. Be helpful, be supportive, but be as helpful as they need for you to be. Be supportive, be being a listening ear, maybe making suggestions about if you're not a good person for them to talk to, maybe finding someone, a therapist who specializes in grief, especially if it's complex grief. If it's grief that's been ongoing and ongoing and ongoing, and the person doesn't seem to be it still seem to be struggling, having a very difficult time with that, then yeah, you may want to look for some professional help. But being supportive and talking with the person about that, right? And giving them the opportunity to make that decision if they're of that age where they can make that decision for themselves. So be mindful of that, guys, as we go through the holiday season. I have to be respectful of the time. I understand that I was a bit late coming on here tonight, but I am excited as always to be present before you, to be in the studio with you, and to show off my shirt as super. It says therapist at the bottom. I don't know whether or not you can see it, but SherVonne Grose, I am your super therapist, not a superwoman, but definitely a super therapist. So, anyway, guys, it has been great being before you tonight. And I hope that you are able to enjoy the holiday season as much as you can. But again, remember that there are those that are among us who may not be experiencing the joy of that's typically associated with this particular season, right? And this particular season can be very stressful for many of us, right? Because we feel like we have to buy, or we feel like we have to go. And so we have to be mindful of those things as well, right? So make sure you are taking care of you. For those of you who may be grieving, for those of you who this season produces a lot of anxiety, a lot of what we call the negative emotions, make sure you're being especially kind to yourself, that you're being patient to yourself, and that you're extending grace to yourself, and that you are implementing those boundaries, right? Being able to say no, right? Without offering any types of excuses, right? without giving any explanation. No just means no, right? And I could probably go on and on and on, and I would love to go on and on and on with you about this, but I have to be respectful of the time. If you want more information about grief, or how to actually set your boundaries, establish healthy boundaries, if you feel like you just need to talk to someone, even me, please reach out to me. You can reach out to me. You can go to my website. It's www.SherVonneGrose.com. You can reach out to me at SherVonneGroseMFT@gmail.com. And if you're interested in being a guest on the Wow Wish Only Well live TV or radio show, reach out to me at WOW.info at gmail.com. Okay, this is all of our time for the night, guys. Wishing you all a wonderful rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. And listen, guys, please, please, please don't forget to wow. It means so much to wow. And by wow, I mean to wish only well. It could be a smile, could be a hello, could be a hug if the person is open for that type of engagement. Okay, that's all for now, gals. That's all for now, guys and girls. Oh my gosh, sometimes my words just do, but it's all good, love. So listen, that's all of our time for tonight, guys. And I will see you tomorrow. I will see you next week on Wow Wish Only Well TV show at 7 p.m. We do have a special guest who will be in the studio with me. And I will see you, or you can listen to me, sorry, tomorrow on the Wow radio show at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, guys. Good night.